Ex-Millionaires of Reddit, what made you lose all your money? I have a relative W. Harlot is a self-made millionaire many times over. He was the hardest working person I've ever known. As soon as he graduated from high school he got his real estate license and became a successful realtor. Within 20 years he opened a successful construction company, a store that sold kitchen cabinets, and owned over 20 rental properties. Yes. This wasn't enough for him, and he started renting out his properties to people that would pay him more to grow pot in. His granite company was used to ship the pot across state lines, and now he's sitting in jail facing a minimum of 10 years. The government is coming after all his rentals and money. I watched a guy at a casino somehow get a loan against his house, about $200k, and lose it. He looked suicidal. Apparently he was already in almost $50k and thought he could win it back. I got hired there, and I would leave on Friday and return Monday, and see the same people in the same clothes. W. Harlot pissed and sued themselves, and were still sitting at the blackjack table gambling. Gambling really is crazy. I didn't see any big losses like you, but I remember this couple so vividly. Her greasy dyed hair, lifeless stare, mouth half open the whole time. Hoodie, Crocs and jogging pants. Him, bald, tracksuit and a cigarette in his mouth. Both holding hands while playing away their money. So bizarre. I miss working there, and I love to gamble too. Been to Vegas dozens of times, but never saw anyone blow their house like I did at Turning Stone in the late 90s. This guy was completely wiped out. He was about to go call his wife and tell her he lost the house. Hypothetical millionaire. I bought $100 worth of Bitcoin when they were about $1 each. I sold them when they were about $2.50 each and was so happy I made money from internet coins. As of the moment I'm typing this, those coins would be worth $1,855,000. Yeah, I can sadly and frustratingly one up this. I have a cool hard 150 BTC to $7 million in a wallet I can't access. I have been trying passwords for years and coming up dry, and the worst part is that the wallet is connected to an old work email account that I can't access. The upswing is the company I worked for, and email that I used is nearing insolvency for non-covered issues, and in fact should be turning massive profits, but alas, lousy management was the reason I left, as is why they are failing. So soon I will be able to purchase the domain name cheap and set up and email address for password recovery. I'm so excited about this and looking forward to 2021 and diversifying my portfolio. If it's still there, that's actually exciting. If you can get access to that account again, you are a millionaire. I hope you get them back. I got pretty close by selling my company to a bigger competitor, reinvested most of it since I had not much use for the money, but then got scammed for about $500,000 on buying some real estate. They smelled a newly rich kid from miles away. I still like to think I was worth $1 million at some brief point in time. Crypto millionaire, still worth a lot, with my accounts about $850,000 today. I have a lot of XRP. But in 2017 I was worth about $5 million before the crash. Lowest was $300,000. I'm a hodler, so I don't day trade usually. Divorce. I was a millionaire. Got divorced, which nearly sent me to insolvency. Buckled down and worked my butt off and am re-millionaired. Guys, don't estimate the pernicious impact on net worth a bad divorce can have. Not me, technically, but my grandma. So a little backstory. My great grandparents owned a luxury fur coat business and made an absolute shitload of money. When my grandma and her brother, my great uncle, had moved out from their parents' house, they were given a sizable amount of money, not millions, but far more than the average person might get in such a situation, to fund their adulthood. Great uncle ended up opening 2 businesses using this money, a gas station and a used car lot. He made pretty good money running these 2 businesses. We'll get back to him a little bit later in the story. Grandma, however, took this money that was given to her and blew a lot of it on fancy clothes, vacations, etc. She then got married to my grandpa and had 3 kids. and then he ended up cheating on her and took a bunch of her remaining money in the divorce. Meanwhile, great uncle was furthering his business ventures, opening a payphone business, helicopter tours, and all kinds of other shit. He was rolling in money at this point. Sometime later, my great-grandparents died, within months of each other. They then split their inheritance two ways, 1/3 of it going to my great uncle, and 2/3 going to my grandma. The argument was that he was a wealthy bachelor with no kids, and she was struggling to get by with a secretary job while raising 3 kids by herself. This ticked off my great uncle quite a bit, since he knew what she had done with her previous huge handout. He was mad about the inheritance not being 50/50, but not something that he'd quit talking to my grandma over. Not yet, anyway. So, what do you think my grandma did with her huge windfall of money? Did she open a business? No. Did she invest it in some way? No. Did she do absolutely anything productive whatsoever? Of fucking course not. The first thing she did was buy a great big house in a nice neighborhood. Actually, no wait. That was the second thing she did. The first thing she did was quit her job. Then, she bought a luxury car. Then came luxury clothes for my mom, aunt and uncle. Then she hired a full-time live-in maid. Then came the vacations to all the hottest vacation spots of the day. Gourmet meals every day. All the toys and gadgets that they could possibly want. You name it, she bought it. So it should come as no surprise that she burned through the entire inheritance in less than a year. 2/3 of the money that her parents had worked their whole lives for. More money than anyone should reasonably ever be able to spend. She blew through in under 12 months. But she kept spending, driving herself into debt. They lost the house, lost the luxury car, and even had to sell all their fancy clothes and toys just to pay the enormous debt she had gained. And then she came to my great uncle's office and asked him for money. She was promptly thrown out by security and was told that he would never speak with her again. And he never did. Imagine my surprise when I grew up in what was basically the borderline of total poverty, and my family tells me that they used to be filthy stinking rich because of what my grandma did. My great uncle more or less cut off contact with her side of the family for years. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I ever met the man. I think later on in his life, he felt bad about punishing the rest of the family when all of the fault lied on my grandma, and he started to talk with us every so often. But we knew to never ask him for anything, even though we were all struggling. When my grandma was on her deathbed, she begged for us to have my great uncle come to the hospital so she could apologize to him. When told about this, his response was basically "I don't give a fuck." And then, in an almost ironic twist, he married an obvious gold digger, 30-ish years his junior. W. Harleth had already survived 2 other dead Aldrich G. UIS. And then when he died, IED, she got everything. Disconnected their phone line. And disappeared like a fucking bandit. His actual family got nothing. TL. Doctor, great-grandparents were rich. Great uncle becomes a successful businessman. Grandma blows every last penny of their inheritance in record time. Great uncle cuts off contact with her after she begs him for money. She dies alone. He dies and has his entire inheritance taken by his gold-digging wife. I'm still poor. Holy Sugar, this was a roller coaster of a story. Not me but an acquaintance. He got caught not paying taxes and dealing in stolen goods. He spent time in federal prison and lost everything, including his wife. Crime does not always pay. My dad retired quite well off after a long and fulfilling career. 2 weeks after retirement, he got diagnosed with cancer. He had good insurance, so a lot of the treatment was covered. But turns out, living with cancer is costly in a lot of other ways. My mom became a full-time caregiver. I was stuck in grad school. My sister was still in undergrad. He was still on the hook for our education, while our income was zero. They needed someone to make fresh meals for them thrice a day because my dad kept getting infections if he ate food from outside, and my mother couldn't keep up. Also, he began having food sensitivities, and it became expensive getting things he could stomach. Then he needed a counselor coming home a few times a week, and that got expensive. and my sister moved back home to help care for him, and then her commute cost extra, and I had to fly back around the world to see him a couple of times. Then he needed a trained carriage driver part-time, and then full-time as he got worse. Then the surgery, and then the medical items to keep his care going got really expensive when the good quality ones needed to be shipped from abroad. There was also all the special foods and supplements to boost his health and immunity. Long story short, he made it a little past the 2 years the doctors told us he would, but by the end of it, our finances had been significantly depleted. About a year in, I quit grad school and got a paying job. It was too much uncertainty financially to stay in grad school, especially since my sister was in a field that paid well only several years in. It worked out career-wise, so I don't regret it, and I was able to make enough to pay for his surgery when insurance was iffy. My sister had to refuse a couple of good jobs because they involved travel, and she wanted to stay close by to take care of him. After he passed, we really had to overhaul our finances because some of his assets got tied up in litigation and cost us a lot in legal fees to transfer it to my mother's name. But thankfully my career began paying off and I could cover it all. No sweat. Eventually I saved enough to allow my sister to go to grad school. But for a few years, we were all living paycheck to paycheck, mine, which was a shame, given how diligently my father had saved and invested. We also finally got access to some of his assets and passive income streams. So now my mother has a modest income which she can live independently on. I donated my wealth to Orbital Dropper and highly recommend any millionaire reading this do the same. Is that a service that just launches koalas at people from space? I'd guess divorce. Maybe fraud as well. Trust me, if you ever win the lotto, every person you have ever met, seems like, will show up with their hand out. If you want to test that, post on your social media that you won a lottery and see what happens. Then, let everyone know you won $5. And then, drop everyone W Holla tasked for MO. Covered. My parents have tons of money in stocks and lost their millionaire status due to the crash that happened. I'm talking tens of thousands in a day at one point. Thankfully, with the drug trials being successful, they are starting to make back their money, though it's still not where it was before due to the industry they have stock in being hit hard by the shutdowns. Make matters worse, my father is at one half pay since he works hospitality. My dad, not me. He made some really shrewd stock market investments after he retired. They were options on an oil refiner at a time when the USA had a real shortage of them. My dad had done a lot of research on this and studied the situation carefully. He got rich to the tune of maybe $2 million. He could have been set for life. My dad was already a really smart guy. He has a PhD in mathematics and was a highly respected big brain professional all the way back into the 1960s. However, he thought this took him to the next level. He bought a lot of newer options in the same company. I suggested to him that he diversify, put a bunch of money into something closer to an annuity or another conservative investment that would give him plenty of income forever. I told him if he did that, he would always be rich. Well, he is pretty far from that now. I haven't said a thing about that to him since he lost everything. I did what I could at the time to save him from himself. But W Holatwa, SI, it pains me to see how it played out for him. He did a lot of things right in life. He deserved better. But there's no deserve in securities investing. Morals of this story. 1. You aren't an investment genius after your first blockbuster win. You need a track record. 2. Diversify. I was almost a millionaire, oh boy. Here we go. I met so a few years ago when AMD and Tesla were wicked low. Before Tesla merged with SolarCity. Well, I was making pretty good money back then and living like a homeless person. Minimal spending. Driving a shitty car etc. all while putting 90% of my money on AMD and Tesla stocks. The thing is, I knew shitbag about stocks and was just curious about investing. So basically all my money, I'm talking all of it, was in stocks. And when I met all of a sudden I needed better clothes, a better car, money for movie tickets, etc. At the time my paycheck would go directly to Schwab and I would live on 10%. That would go on my credit union again. Like I said, I was borderline homeless. I'm a garbage man and my paychecks were and still are actually pretty good. But all of a sudden I needed money ASAP. So I sold all the stocks at a minimum profit, like double my investment, and spend it all on an apartment, an M3, dress clothes, fuck ton of dress shoes. Simple things I overlooked like razor blades, etc. My stock money didn't last very long. And thinking back to it, I should have just readjusted my deposit percentages to 10% Schwab, 90% credit union, because I needed money ASAP. Well, suffice to say that today I would have been worth many $1 million, my friend. Now, I'm worth dick. I'm a father now, a family man, a slumlord. Just kidding, I'm a pretty good landlord, but I made the mistake to rent a family and they don't pay rent. So my main income goes to paying mortgages, while netting zero income until the courts deal with them. Money is not that big of an issue at our home, but I no longer have the surplus to buy stocks like I used to. I kick myself in the ass for being so young and naive, and say to myself, if only I had a father figure to mentor me about these things. I have a father, but he's a more NW holotab and owned us as kids to chase poo. SSY. There is light at the end of the tunnel though. I'm not worth much, actually I'm not worth anything, but I do maximum out my 401k every year and that's what I'm most proud of, even though it's hard sometimes. Mez. I don't have the discipline or patience for the stock market, so I put down $20 a week on Schwab stock slices, which is a fun way to gamble, buy and hold. I own a few income properties that I'm hoping turn a profit eventually when my tenants start paying rent again, so there's that. I was almost a millionaire, my friends. NDS. Funny to think about it. I don't blame my wife, by the way. It was my fault for saving all my money and living on so little, where I neglected having a wardrobe and good things over. Also, when I met her I needed everything. I left the Schwab account open and recently logged into it again after the crash in March. That's when I decided to double down on 401k and get back in the stock game. I'm a buy and hold type of guy, but sugarman, I should have just readjusted my deposits and I would have been swimming in the dough. Lot nows, maybe I'm meant to be a slave to the doll. La. Fudge eat. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.